For many years of my life, I cared for children the world preferred to forget. At the orphanage where I worked, I offered them comfort, stories, and love, even when no one else paid them any attention. I didn't have much, but I gave everything I could. Now, old and cast aside by my own family, I live in a nursing home where time moves slowly and visits are as rare as sunshine on cloudy days. I no longer expected any big surprises from life, until one ordinary afternoon, a man walked through those doors with a look that seemed to know me better than I knew myself. And that's when everything began to change. My name is Elisa, I'm 82 years old, and I've been living at Recanto das Rosas for almost 7 years. I came here after losing my job as a cook at a preschool, a fall in the hallway, a broken arm, and the administration thought it best to let me go. My children? No. They had their own lives, commitments, perfect families. They told me I'd be safer here, that I'd have everything I needed. But no one asked what I wanted. Time here doesn't hurt, but it weighs. It weighs like a damp quilt on the chest. I don't complain. I've learned not to expect too much from life. I follow my routine. I make my bed with the same precision I had in my youth. I put a bit of lipstick on. I like to see a glimpse of life in the mirror, and I talk to the garden plants when the caregivers let me go downstairs. Sometimes I close my eyes and transport myself to the past. I can almost hear the small, curious voices of the children running through the orphanage hallways where I worked for more than 20 years. I remember the names of many. Remember the patched clothes, the outstretched hands asking to be held, the silent tears at bedtime. I never had children of my own, so I made those children the closest thing I had to a family. The love I gave wasn't recorded on any documents, but it lived in the small gestures, the warm glass of milk before sleep, the made-up stories to chase away fears, the care for scraped knees. But memory, that tricky thing, isn't so clear anymore. Some faces blur together. Names fade over time like chalk on an old blackboard. Maybe that's why I didn't recognize the man when he walked into the lounge that day. It was an ordinary afternoon. The sun cast beautiful shadows through the trees, and I was knitting a blue blanket no one had asked for. When he entered, I noticed everyone stopped pretending to be distracted. He was tall, elegant, dressed in a suit that looked more expensive than everything in that nursing home combined. His gaze was intense, like someone searching for something only he knew how to find. The caregivers bustled around, offering coffee, explaining visiting hours. But he ignored all of it. He came straight to me. "Mrs. Elisa?" he asked, as if my name held weight in his mouth. I looked up slowly, trying to remember. His face was vaguely familiar, but not enough. Maybe a new doctor? A relative of one of the ladies? I smiled politely. "That's me. Do we know each other?" He sat beside me with a gentleness that contrasted with his stature. There was an emotion in his eyes I didn't immediately understand. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Daniel Souza. You took care of me when I was a child at the San Francisco orphanage." My heart stopped for a moment. I looked at him more closely. Daniel, the name knocked around in my mind like a key trying to find the right lock. I began to dig through the dust of my memory. There had been a Daniel. Yes. A frail little boy, quiet and tearful, who used to hide bread in his pockets and sleep curled up as if he wanted to disappear. "Little Daniel?" I murmured, barely finding my voice. And in that moment, I saw the boy behind the grown man. He smiled. "That's what you used to call me. Little Daniel." I was the one who ate in secret and slept in the broom closet so I wouldn't hear the other boys fighting. The blanket slipped from my lap. I brought my hands to my mouth, my eyes filling with tears. My God, the boy from the closet. I remembered now. I had given him a small blanket, hidden from the nuns. I hugged him one night when I found him trembling in fear. I told him the story of a boy who turned into a giant when he closed his eyes. I said he didn't need to be strong, just kind, even if no one saw. I said it like someone soothing a wounded bird, not knowing that little bird would one day learn to fly higher than anyone. "I remember," I whispered, touching his face. "But you've grown." He chuckled warmly. "Much more than you can imagine." We talked there for over an hour. He wanted to know about me, my life, everything that happened afterward. I tried to hide the embarrassment as I told him I was here, because I had nowhere else to go. I said life had been kind in parts, but that old age isn't always a comfortable place for those who age without applause. My family thought I had become a burden. After I lost my job, they brought me here. Said it was temporary, but they never came back. He didn't reply right away. He just held my hands tightly, and in that gesture, there was a reverence I had never felt before. As if he were thanking me, not with words, but with everything my fading memory had once done for him. Before leaving, he looked at me with misty eyes. Mrs. Elisa, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. I became who I am because of your kindness. And I didn't come here just to remember the past. I came to change your present. He said goodbye with a kiss on my forehead, promising to return. I stayed there, frozen, feeling a warmth in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Something had changed. And for the first time in years, I felt that time wasn't just a burden, it could also be a bridge. That night, I couldn't sleep. The room was the same. The sheets still smelled of mild disinfectant, and the ceiling fan kept its monotonous whirring. But something in me had changed. My heart was beating with a strength I hadn't felt in a long time, as if it had just awakened from a long winter. Daniel, little Daniel from the orphanage. My God, who would have thought? I had forgotten him, just like so many others. Not out of lack of love, but because my memory no longer carries as many faces as it once did. But now there he was. Grown, strong, successful, and with a gaze that pierced through me like a letter unread for decades. The next day, I got up before the sun. I put on my blue floral dress, the one I saved for special occasions, even if no one noticed anymore. I put on red lipstick, carefully combed my hair, and went to the garden. I waited. 2 hours later, just when I started to think maybe he had changed his mind, or that it had all just been another emotional visit like so many others I'd seen here, I heard the caregiver Lasagna calling my name from the entrance. Mrs. Elisa, someone's outside asking for you. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I walked as fast as my legs allowed toward the front gate. And there he was. Again. Wearing a suit, yes, but this time without a tie. He held flowers. Yellow flowers. Daisies. They're your favorite, aren't they? He asked, holding out the bouquet. I held it with trembling hands. Yes, they were. But I didn't remember ever telling him that. Maybe he had seen them in one of the many pots I planted at the orphanage. Or maybe he simply remembered me with more affection than I could imagine. You really came back, I whispered. I said I would. And I came with an invitation. He offered me his arm, like an old-fashioned gentleman, and led me to a black car parked nearby. A driver opened the door. I hesitated. Daniel, I'm not authorized to leave. He smiled. It's all arranged. I spoke with the administration. You're allowed to go out with a companion. And today, the world out there is all yours, Mrs. Elisa. We went to an elegant restaurant, the kind I had only seen in the magazines at the front desk. He ordered with confidence, like someone who knows what he likes, and yet he still asked if I preferred chicken or fish, wine or juice, shade or window seat. He was the same boy who once asked me if he could have more rice. During lunch, we talked about his life. Daniel had become a businessman. He had created a tech company that provided solutions for hospitals and schools. He had traveled the world, learned languages, met powerful people. But as he told me all this, there was a humility in him that moved me more than any figure. I never forgot you, you know, he said, running his finger along the rim of the glass. How you held my hand when no one else would come near me. How you called me brave, even when I cried in secret. You were the first person who looked at me like I mattered. I swallowed hard. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't done more than what my heart told me to. How many children had I embraced? How many little Daniels had passed through my life and never returned? He then took out a plain envelope and placed it on the table. I frowned. What's this? A gift. Or maybe a repayment. I opened it carefully. Inside, a check. For $1 million. Yes. You read that right. My vision blurred. I was speechless for several seconds. I can't accept this. Yes, you can. And you will. Because this isn't charity. It's gratitude. It's justice. You changed my life. And now I want to change yours. I felt the ground fall away. I never imagined I'd live to see something like this. Not because of the money itself, but because of the gesture. The immensity of it. $4 million. What could an old woman in a care home possibly do with that? He seemed to understand my confusion and smiled gently. Use it however you want. Buy a house. Travel. Donate. Start something new. The money is yours. And so is the time. I returned to the care home that day as if I had stepped out of a dream. The caregivers were in a frenzy. Some whispered in the hallways. But me, I just wanted silence. I wanted to absorb it all. The next day, I requested to leave the home permanently. I bought a small house in a leafy neighborhood with a porch, a garden, and a rocking bench like the one from my childhood. Daniel helped me with everything. He said it would bring him joy to see me living well. Only then did my family reappear. My eldest son called first. After years of silence. Hi, Mom. We heard you received a lot of money. Maybe we could talk. His tone wasn't one of longing. It was the tone of someone sniffing out opportunity. My daughter-in-law sent a message. Then she showed up at the door of my new house with the grandchildren in her arms, the same ones who had never visited me at the home. I received them politely, made coffee, listened to their stories, the hardships, the overdue bills, that business venture that just needed a little push. I took a deep breath, looked into their eyes calmly, and said, I spent years in a care home forgotten by you, and only now I've become a memory? The money I received came from something you never valued, the good we plant without expecting anything in return. Now I ask you to plant too, and wait patiently as I did. Time demands, but it also rewards. They left in silence. For the first time, they listened without talking back. In the days that followed, I brought an old dream back to life. I opened a small shelter for abandoned elderly women, like I had once been. I gave them what I had never received in all those years: choice, respect, affection. I named the place Casa Daniel. And every evening, as the sun sets, I sit on the porch and write little gratitude letters. One each day. To God, to myself, and to life, which, even late, decided to embrace me back. Life sometimes takes a while to give back to us. But when it does, it's like a warm breeze after a long, frozen night. Silent, sweet, and profoundly fair. In the first months after leaving the nursing home, I still woke up before the sun. Old habit. I would pick up the kettle, make my chamomile tea, and open the windows slowly, as if still asking the day for permission to enter. But now, there was a difference. The scent of freedom. The house was simple, but beautiful. A small rose garden, a porch with 2 wooden benches, and a wind chime that Daniel had hung himself. He visited me almost every week. Sometimes he brought food he had cooked himself. He said he learned to cook to remember the good things from his childhood. Other times, he just sat with me to listen. He said my stories made him feel there was still time to become better. It was during one of those conversations that I told him about an old dream, to create a home for elderly women who, like me, had been forgotten by their families. A place where they wouldn't be treated as burdens, but as living pages of history. Where they could plant flowers, embroider, laugh out loud, and, most importantly, be called by their names. Daniel looked at me in silence. After a moment, he answered firmly, "Let's make it happen." And that's how Casa Daniel was born. It wasn't easy. Renovating the old mansion we found took time, patience, and committed people. But he paid every cent. He said the project was also his way of giving back to life for what it had given him through me. The opening was one of the most beautiful days of my life. We welcomed ladies from various institutions, some rescued from places where they were treated like leftovers. The first night was filled with wary glances. But it only took a few shared meals, spontaneous laughter, simple acts of care, and old songs for their faces to begin to soften. I walked through the hallways calling each one by name. Maria, the one who braided the other's hair. Donatcita, who still knew all the lyrics to forgotten boleros. Antonia, who played the accordion and turned afternoons into celebrations. The house smelled like life again. And so did I. One afternoon, walking through the garden, I saw Daniel sitting with one of the ladies. He was holding a photo album, and she was laughing like a young girl. I approached without them noticing. And I heard, "This one is Dona Elisa, the woman who saved me when I was just a boy afraid of the dark." The woman looked at the photo with affection and replied, "She saved all of us, my dear." That night, alone on the porch, I wrote one more of my letters, this one, to myself. Dear Elisa, you lived your whole life believing that giving love was enough. And it was. Even when no one noticed. Even when your name wasn't remembered on special dates. Now you have been remembered. Not as a martyr, not as a saint, but as a human being who planted, even during the drought. You are proof that goodness always comes back. Sometimes late, sometimes silently, but it always comes back. A few days later, my son showed up again. He brought a gift in his hands. A flower in a pot. He said he wanted to try to start over. I looked into his eyes, and I saw no lies. But I also didn't see the urgency of the heart. I forgave him, yes. Because resentment only sickens the one who carries it. But I made it clear. Son, love can't be bought or demanded. It is built and watered. If you want to stay, come with truth. If not, go in peace.
He cried.
And he hugged me like never before. Today, Casa Daniel is home to 18 women. All of them with stories that once seemed forgotten, but that are gradually coming back to life like seeds awakening in the soil. We have group talks every Friday. On Saturdays, we have Memory Day. Each one shares a memory that was worth it. I've heard stories of war, love, loss, and reunions that could fill an entire book. And me? I keep writing my letters. One per day. I still have so much to be grateful for. So much to live. Sometimes I think I could have lived all of this sooner.
But no.
The right time was now. Because now I am ready. Now I know who I am. I am Elisa. Former orphanage worker. Former forgotten elderly woman. Former nursing home resident. And above all, a woman who loved without expecting anything in return, and, for that very reason, received the world back. Daniel is like a son to me now. He always says he wouldn't be where he is if not for me. But I also say, I wouldn't have found my worth again if he hadn't come back. That's how life is. It turns. But it always takes us back to where love was true. And now, at the end of each day, when I look at the sunset on the horizon and hear the laughter of the ladies echoing through the halls of our home, I can only think of one word: gratitude.